NIO delivered over 160,000 vehicles in the year of 2023. This was actually a fail based off or compared to what they suggested they thought they would be able to do early in 2023. Let's talk about this. Now, I'd said that I would wait to address this until the end of the year numbers were in. Well, they're in, and it's time to talk about this because it is a fail by NIO. And I had said early in the year, I didn't think, and early in the year of 2023, I should clarify that I did not think that they would get to the numbers they were suggesting. Here's NIO with their actual numbers of 160,000 and versus the roughly 245,000 estimate that they had kind of given us. Now let's talk a little bit. Let's drill down a little on this. NIO keeps goal of doubling sales this year despite price war causing greater challenges. Now this was in April that this article was published, but I've highlighted a couple things and let's talk about them a little bit. And then we'll look at a breakdown and a chart of why this time frame just didn't sit right with me. So NIO delivered a total of 122,486 vehicles in 2022. So obviously doubling that, you're looking at roughly the 240, whereas Thinker Car had it, about 245,000 vehicles. Now, William Lee said in a March 1st analyst call following NIO's fourth quarter earnings announcement that the company is aiming to see sales double this year compared to last year. Our team is very confident in that, Lee said at the time. In a March 22nd interview with Bloomberg TV, NIO CFO Stephen Feng said the company is very confident it will meet its sales target in 2023. And I also think that Qin Lihong kind of iterated or reiterated this same sort of 240,000 number was achievable from NIO. Now, this is all kind of earlier in the year, but I want to talk about this because the date on this was April, and we're referencing March 1st and March 22nd, the March to April timeframe. So this is where they were right in this time frame, and this is the year based on the weekly breakdown of the insurance registrations, which is similar, comparable, and kind of an estimate of sales. And it's pretty obvious from where they were here early in the year, they were going to need huge numbers, a massive uptick on the numbers. And they were still coming out with new models and refreshes of older models. And so I just thought, okay, this makes no sense. But there's another reason as well that I just had my doubts about this. And so if we go back in time, the first and maybe the only time I've actually been frustrated with NIO was in the summer during the pandemic, during the lockdowns, when NIO gave us no heads up on a really subpar number because they had issues and didn't tell us about it. And so they came out with their monthly delivery numbers and they were really poor. And I was frustrated because they gave us no heads up on that. And so I just thought, okay, this was an issue. How do I adjust and sort of structure for this as an investor? I want to always be improving, recognizing what's going on and making adjustments, even if that means being more conservative, let's say, on what they're suggesting they can do versus what they're actually doing. And so I shifted my mentality at that point to, I don't care what they say. They need to show me, not tell me. And I'm going to sort of trust my research and go from there. Now, based on what I was seeing early on in the year, I'm just kind of like, yeah, they're not going to see those numbers. I don't think they should be suggesting this. But let's dig even a little bit deeper because this now is the second quarter earnings call. And this is the first question from it. Now, the second quarter earnings call was a bad one. We knew it would be, or at least I did. And I talked about how this is going to be a bad one. And so I was curious how the market would receive it. And so here's the first question from Bin Wang from Credit Suisse. He says, my question is about your sales network structure. Recently, I heard you hired a few of the salespersons from other luxury brands such as BMW, Mercedes, and Audi. So what's the reason you hired a non-NIO salesperson recently? And how is the impact so far for your sales volume increase? We also found that in your third quarter guidance, you actually imply in August and September will be lower compared to January. So here we are, and this is in August. It was late August when they did this earnings call. So just from March to August, what a shift, even within the company, even though they never walked back on their full year sort of overview of being able to double the numbers. And I do think I won't say it's an issue because I've already recognized and kind of structured for it, but I don't like that look. And it's why when we talk subbrand in just a minute, I'm not believing, or I don't have a high confidence that they're going to come in with huge numbers from the subbrand immediately or even in the short term. But more on that in a minute. So if we go back to, and this is kind of the follow-up question. So kind of what's the reason behind it? Is it because of supply chain issue? Thank you so much. So William Lee took this question and he answered. And he said, for your question, for your first question, actually around June. So again, this is several months after they had kind of reiterated or suggested they could double their numbers for the year. He said, we have realized that inside of the company, in terms of the number of our salespersons, as well as the capabilities of selling products, we are left behind by the competitors in the market. For example, for those luxury brands like BMW or Mercedes, the size of their sales team is 6 to 7 times ours. Without sufficient personnel or touch point, we cannot realize a very good user satisfaction, realize very good test drives, or high conversion rate from leads to orders. So starting from June, July, and August, we have taken a more active manners in improving our sales capabilities. And with that, we hope that the company will be able to support the new orders of 30,000 units per month. So look, this is the way I take this. That's kind of the bigger picture overview goal that he had talked about earlier, 30,000 units per month just with the NIO brand. But as of June, he's already acknowledging that they realized that they were off. They were missing some things. And so they knew that they would have to start increasing their sales personnel, the fellows. And I've covered that in other videos. I'll link it. And so you can check that out as well. They've almost, I think they, in fact, have more than doubled their sales personnel teams or their fellows for those teams. And so they are in the process of being trained. But this is a big miss. And now, finally, and to kind of bring this all home on the sub-brand and sort of to address the sub-brand and why I don't think we're going to have huge sub-brand numbers is NIO has not made these adjustments in a timely enough fashion or manner for me as an investor to say, yeah, I think they're going to come in where they say they're going to come in. They can say whatever they want. I'm going to keep tracking things week to week, month to month, to the extent that we can anyway. And that gives me a better sense of what's going on, which is why I took this as likely to be a big miss on the part of NIO. And it was, relative to what they were saying early in the year. And I'm not going to avoid talking about it, but I also didn't see the point of discussing it intra-year when we didn't have the year-end numbers. And so I was kind of like, hey, let's just see where we end up. Now, for example, we haven't seen a 30,000 number deliveries for any month. We haven't seen a 25,000. So that's just kind of where we're at. And I think more realistically in the short term for 2024, I'll be watching for them to get to that 20,000 number. Now, relative to the sub-brand, they've suggested in earnings calls before, and I'm talking about execs from NIO upper management, they've suggested, this 50,000 number for the sub-brands. Look, I don't care what they're saying about that. They need to release it. We need to see what the numbers are. I'm not going to have this expectation that they're going to do those numbers, especially because we have this behavioral pattern from NIO and even from the higher up execs, no matter how much I might like William Li and company, if they're missing and consistently missing on some of these suggestions versus what they're actually doing, I have to default to the numbers. And so show me, don't tell me kind of thing, I guess. So with that, I do think the sub-brand is going to be a success. I don't know if it's going to be more like the European numbers, which are really slow to grow, or if we'll see a big uptick early on, but I'm just not going to count on it. And that's bigger picture overview. That's also consistent with my long-term view. So I can afford to do that. My risk tolerance level and the time frames that I've structured in are appropriate. And I'm just adapting and adjusting as we go. I also think that it's a bigger play. And ironically, it might end up being more profitable for them to focus on the power swap station implementation, development, infrastructure build out at this stage. And some people may not agree with that, may think that's crazy. And I will come in with a video once I'm still doing research on some of this, and it's hard to get all the data. I think NIO might be hiding some of it because they don't want it to be widely known just how profitable that's going to be yet. So, I'm digging and trying to find what I can. But in the meantime, things like, and I have the playlist pulled up for the weekly insurance registration numbers. Look, these don't even come from NIO. But for example, the week that we may not get here to end the year of 2023, for example, we might have had a 5,000 number come in for NIO based on what their actual monthly deliveries were and compared to what we've already been tracking here on the channel. Now, NIO's only hit 5,000 a couple times before in a single week. So that's a positive sign that they're heading in that direction. Also, with the sales teams being hired in roughly September and needing about 6 months for proper training and to get up to speed, but also kind of on the heels of NIO Day and hopefully what was a positive, and I've got it at the bottom of the screen there on the ticker, First major growth phase for NIO, market awareness. The brand is still becoming known as premium legit, even within its home turf of China. So with that kind of all falling into place, what kind of numbers will we see in the first, let's say, 3 to 6 months of 2024? That's the biggest unknown for me with NIO and on the delivery side. And then will we see the sub brand come in early? And if so, what kind of numbers will they have? I'm not going to be overtly positive or aggressive on the numbers side. They need to show us. They need to actually do the deliveries and ramp the deliveries, and then we'll go from there. But I want to hear from others, and I've seen all kinds of different opinions. I try to be more about the analytics and the overview and the research and just observing things, even if it's observing behavioral patterns of investors and how negative sentiment is, or what Citadel is perhaps doing to mess with stock price action. There's a lot to study, and so I try and stay focused on that. If we want to sort of look at where things are to start 2024, the last 6 months of 2023, NIO averaged over 17,500 deliveries per month. So let's just see moving forward how that looks. And then again, if you want to break it down a little more, that's why I've been tracking the insurance registration, the weekly data. Although it doesn't come from NIO, we get a sense, an idea of things, and we can kind of feel things out. One of the things that we've noticed, for example, from doing this and studying this data over the last, year plus, is that toward the end of the month, NIO's numbers always seem to trend up. They always seem to be better at the end of the month. And so that's why I was very curious what the monthly delivery numbers for December would end up being. It was a positive. It was a surprise upwards compared to what I was expecting. So that was nice to see, but it's also a consistency and a validation point for what we've already been seeing and tracking. And that's exactly why I try to offer some of the things I do so that we can have more awareness and keep kind of tracking and watching this giant in the making. NIO's a unicorn. We've never seen a company like it. I absolutely believe it. That's why I picked it. I don't expect things to just change overnight with respect to stock price action. I think profitability is really important for that. But again, let me wrap this thing and get it up and out. I wanted to finally address this because I had said throughout the year that I would address this issue, what I expected to be a fail from NIO on the delivery side of things for the year, versus what they were saying and what I thought they would actually do. And so I'm just curious what others will be thinking and saying. And look, overall, nothing has changed for me. In fact, I'm actually more positive and more bullish on the company and its potential global market overview. It's going to be a much bigger energy player than I ever thought, even if only within China. And that's really the only market they need to dominate in. So big things ahead. I absolutely believe it. But anyway, let me get this thing up and out. Thanks for watching. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll be back with more content before you know it. Thanks and have a great day.